Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is the U-turn from the U-turn that SNP have done over the last 12 hours. Bonkers, right? So let's just give a wee sort of summary of what got us to this position. All centres around Matheson and his ban, right? So Matheson's found guilty by the Standards Committee. They recommend 27-day ban and a 54-day wages sacrifice as the conditions of his being found guilty of about 4 or 5 charges of the standards. But they don't get to make that decision and that's finished. It has to go to Parliament, and Parliament have to agree on it, a majority. Obviously, that's a bit tough because SNP have got a minority government. So, the Standards Committee released their judgment. The very next day, this was last Thursday, John Swinney at First Minister's questions got up and said he backed him to the hilt and he would not be accepting the conditions. He would be voting against them when they were to reach Parliament today. So that was the position. First Minister, I'm not accepting that. I'm going to vote against it, right? So that was a bit weird. So that's where we were. So the position was we're voting against this. Last night, the leaked information to the press was that they were going to support the sanctions, but they were going to put some amendments into the motion, which were the SNP saying basically we agree with the sanctions, but we're not happy with the way the process went, and get something inserted into the motion moaning about the process, which was fine. So they put the amendment through. The amendment went to the vote in Parliament. Somebody on a motorbike. Calm down, Sterling. He went to Parliament today. Their motion got accepted by Parliament. They were then voting on the new sanctions, which included this bit about them not being happy with the process. And although they had said the night before they would accept the sanctions, they abstained. So they didn't accept them. So, although it was still voted, every other member, by the way, everybody that's not in the SNP voted for it, for the sanctions with the amendment that the SNP put on it. And he's suspended for 27 days and 65 days worth, 54 days, I beg your pardon, of wages taken off him. So, it must be the first time in the history of Parliament where a party have made an amendment to a motion, got it accepted, and then when they get put back to vote on the whole thing, didn't vote for it. So what the SNP have done is they've abstained, so they've not said that they vote for it or vote against it, they've just failed to vote. So they're neither supported it nor stood against it, which is absolutely A, bonkers, and B, vile. I think the whole day in Parliament was just a bit shocking. Now, I didn't watch that part of it. I was busy doing other things, but I did watch what happened thereafter. So thereafter, the Tories put up a motion that he should be sacked. And there was a few amendments with that. Eventually, the actual motion was agreed and that put forward to Parliament. And they lost. So Michael Matheson isn't getting sacked, right? And you're just like, what planet do these people live on? And one crackpot, I think he's the Airdrie Shots MSP, SNP boy. Terrible talker. He went up and he was reading this prepared for a 5-minute thing when they were discussing getting Matheson sacked. And he was terrible. I mean, I know it must be difficult being up there and standing up and talking in front of live TV and stuff, but, you know, he's been there for a couple of years now. So I don't know if he just didn't buy into what he was saying because he was reading a prepared script. And in it, he said at one point, I wish, he was telling us how wonderful Matheson was, it's terrible, you know, his family and all that, and he paid the money back and all that utter shite. And he said, I wish this Parliament had more Michael Mathesons. The guy's just been banned for 27 days. He's lucky to have his job. And this crackpot's up in Parliament saying, I wish there was more Michael Mathesons, right? And I'm sorry, I'm no listening, right? I've heard all this guff about how he's been penalised enough, and it was very difficult to deal with. Was it? Now let's just do a quick 30-second summary about what he'd done. He went on holiday, used too much, somebody used too much his data roaming charges, came back to £11,000 bill and got the public purse to pay for it. He didn't, then that's all, but he paid it back. Did he? Aye, great. But when he paid it back, he'd already stood as a minister. His severance pay was £13,000 and he paid back £11,000. So he's lost his job and still got £2,000 in his pocket. Right? That's what we're dealing with here. And we have to feel sorry for Michael Matheson. I mean, it affected his family. Every single person that's committed a crime and been caught, it's affected their family. Right? That's not the fault of the people prosecuting them. That's the fault of the person that broke the rules in the first place. But it's Michael Matheson, so to feel sorry for him. Absolute bedlam. And I'm just not wearing it. It's like, and what's his name, Swinney, he made a comment about the process, right? He was more upset about the process than the crime. This guy's been found guilty in 5 counts, right? Wasn't it just about the actual roaming charge? There was breaks of other things like what he said and lying in Parliament and stuff like that. And he's my friend. He's a good man. He's a good man. So, and he paid it back. This is the argument. You go, hold on. So, if there's a criminal steals money at a bank and pays it back, does that make him not a criminal? And, he was making a big play about the process. And if, somebody in the normal circumstances and, in a normal private firm would have to go through a process like that, they wouldn't have, because they'd have been sacked in the spot. Here's what would have happened in a normal company. That bill would have come in. Somebody would have got wind of him trying to cheat his expenses. He would have been suspended immediately, pending an investigation. The investigation would have found the same things as that committee and sacked him. Now, if there was something wrong with the process that the company applied, the guy still broke the law. Two things would happen. You would punish him, and you go and have a look at your process. You can't say it didn't like that process, so that nullifies the actual crime. And they keep going on about they want independent outsiders to look into this. Tell you what, go and get Police Scotland to look at it, if you're brave enough. Because they'll not go looking for crimes. But if somebody said, Police Scotland, can you have a look at this, see if there's any criminality? They're quite good at looking at political fraud. They've had 3 years practice at it, right? So it would probably take them all of an hour investigating it to go, or no. So, challenge the SNP. If you want an outside, some people would suggest they aren't independent, but you tell us that they are. So we'll go with your version that the prosecution service and the police are totally independent for government. Right? We'll just go with your version of that. Let the police have a look at it. See what they say. Then will we then go, oh, hold on a minute. See that copper that looked into that? He'd already seen something in the paper and he put something on his Twitter that he thought this guy was guilty. It was he should get fired. No. Guilty is charged. Jury by now. And it's amazing that, we always want powers that Westminster have got. Well, Westminster's got the power of recall, and if anybody's suspended for more than 10 days, they could end up going to a by-election. But you don't want that. I don't want that recall law. Absolutely shocking, double standards. And they don't even try to hide it. It's just blatant there in front of anybody. See a normal person that's a nationalist that just quite fancies the notion of an independent Scotland. They must be embarrassed going, oh, I can't vote for these people because they're bad people. How many examples do you want? And, and Alba's not going to get a nationalist what they want, right? Which I'm quite happy about. So where do these people go? You've killed their dreams. I keep saying it, the SNP have managed to, in 17 years in power in Scotland, managed to ruin the country for everybody, including unionists. But they've managed to kill the dreams of the sort of level-headed nationalists. Because they know we ain't getting it. We're a week into this election campaign, and still not one single person, whether it be opposition or a journalist, has said to Mr. Swinney, geez, your two predecessors, they told us how they were going to get independence. Now, the two ideas were crackers. Nicola, we're going to have a de facto referendum, and if we win 50% of the votes plus one, that gives us the right to have a second referendum. We're never going to achieve that. Humza came along and said, if we get a majority of seats, so if we get 30 seats, but that wouldn't give anybody a mandate, because you could do that with well under 50% of the vote, right? Nobody's actually said to Swinney, so this de facto, that been promised by your two predecessors that this election coming would be a de facto referendum. What rules are we playing by, Mr. Swinney? The fact that he said nothing in a week, you know, without anybody asking him, if it was something that he really bought into, he'd be telling the public about it. Guaranteed. So I think it's safe to say that that's off the table. So if you were a nationalist that was buying into this de facto referendum route to independence, that's gone. They ain't talking about it. So it's off the table. So there we go. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and get involved in the comments below. You always get good chat in there. And unless you're John Swinney, Michael Matheson, or any of these crackpots that I watched today up at Holyrood, everybody else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.